Thanks again for dropping by, guys. This is Exotic Car Play Place. I'm Mark, and we're going to talk about whether you should buy an M4 Competition or a new F90 M5 Competition. Yes, two entirely different cars, but two of the hottest versions of each variation. So you want to get into a sedan or you want to get into a coupe and you want both hot rods? Let's talk about some of the specifications and which car you should actually buy. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Mark with Exotic Car Play Place. So first of all, let's talk about some of the basic specifications. Number one, the M5 Competition weighs about 4,300 pounds, whereas the M4 Competition weighs about 3,600 pounds. Now that's a massive weight differential, and it feels like that as well. The M5 Competition has way more power at 617 horsepower versus M4's Competition at 444. Huge weight differential, but pretty substantial power differential to go with it. 0 to 60 time on the M5 Competition is about 3.0 seconds versus 3.8 seconds for the M4 Competition. There's no doubt in my mind, after previous drives in both cars, that the M5 Competition has immense amounts of thrust, almost breathtaking acceleration, especially coming out of short, quick corners and getting on the throttle. That car has massive acceleration. What compounds that is the fact that the M5 Competition actually has all-wheel drive. It defaults to all-wheel drive, so heavy emphasis on the rear with a little bit of augmentation on the front. And the front wheels do pull as well, so you get very little wheel spin and a whole lot of acceleration. Whereas the M4 Competition is strictly rear-wheel drive, and naturally it's just a lot of smoke, noise, and acceleration all mixed into one. Not quite as put down efficiently as the M5. Now, another difference, M4 Competition has the wonderful either manual gearbox or 7-speed dual clutch transmission, the DCT. Whereas the M5 Competition sadly now has an 8-speed automatic only. No options for manuals or double clutch trannies. It's strictly a good old-fashioned 8-speed auto. So as I said, all-wheel drive, automatic versus hardcore rear-wheel drive and double clutch or manual. Pretty distinct differences between the two. Now, performance-wise, there's no doubt in my mind the car that ultimately has the higher limits is the M5 Competition. But after driving both of these cars, I'll tell you that the M5 feels a little bit disconnected in the corners. It's a big car and it feels the size. The M4, on the other hand, feels more like an extension of your elbows and your hands and the steering wheels and your foot pedals. It all feels like an extension of you as a driver. You feel far more connected to the road and far more part of the driving experience, where the M5 is just an appliance for going Mach chicken. So it does really, really crazy speeds, but there's slightly less involvement in the driving experience than you get in the M4 Competition. Now, moving in to, say, for example, cosmetics. What's the better car? Well, the M5, there's no question, the fit and finish, the scale and the magnitude of quality materials within the interior and the cockpit has far exceeded what you'll find in the M4 Competition, partially because the M4 Competition is still based on the old chassis, whereas the new M5 Competition is the F90, which is the newer generation iDrive, gesture controls. It has newer interior, the dash layouts fresher. The interior in general is a lot fresher in the M5 Competition. Even though it is the more upscale version, there's far less cheaper shortcut type materials within the M5 versus, if you look at the interior, but you look at the back seat space in the M4 Competition, it's very, very Spartan, especially for a car of that price at $69,000 for an M4 Competition versus the $112,000 for the M5 Competition. There is a significant difference in price, and it does commensurate with, of course, the fit and finish of the interior. Now, overall, as a packaging, a car that you can live with day to day, which one really is the better vehicle? Well, we already know the M5 has far more limits in terms of ultimate performance. The M4 is a far more connected driving experience with slightly dressed down interior quality finishing, but which one is the better package? So let's put it like this. The M5 has all-wheel drive, so you can drive it in poorer weather. You can disable the all-wheel drive and have the rear drive smoky show. It is a great performance car in that regard if you disable it. So let's break this down at a high level as a packaging. The M5 F90 Competition is a better package. Why? Well, it's the latest and the greatest for the 5 Series. It's been updated. It's got the digital dash layout. It actually has the digital gauges. Even though it has the hard rings, the gauge cluster themselves is actually digital by nature. It also has gesture controls, which is a nice feature. You just operate via turning your finger and it changes the volume and whatnot. You can also up and down with the channels, a channel selection on the radio. You have the latest xDrive system. You have also the latest transmission controller. Latest and greatest for that. It's a nice touch versus the older generation from the F10. On the other hand, the M4, you know it's due for an upgrade. We already know that the M4s and M3s on their way out because now there's a regeneration. Now with the M340i, we already saw that they've released the newest generation G20 series for the 3 Series cars. So you know that the evolution is going to be, there will be a new M3 and M4 coming out soon. But the way it stands right now, the M4 Competition has the older analog gauge setup. It has the older M-Drive display equipment. It has the older controller for the transmission. It is dressed down entirely. And as a whole packaging, it is slightly becoming dated versus the M5 Competition. Herein lies the ultimate question. Which car do you buy? Well, it really boils down to 2 things. Number 1, your budget, because obviously with a differential of about $40,000, $50,000 difference, that's a pretty easy decision to make if you don't have the money for the M5, then obviously you're going to go for the M4 Competition. However, the other question is, what type of driver are you? Do you want the hard, edgy driving experience? Might rattle your spine a little bit. It's going to give you that electrifying surge. The acceleration is going to be quick, but the overall handling and packaging is going to be a lot more brisk and agile and track-oriented. Or do you want the M5 packaging where it's large and in charge, immensely fast, but comfortable? What's your deal? You have to decide the type of driver you are, what you're going to be using it for, as well as your budget. That's really what it boils down to. For me, I will tell you right now, the M5 Competition, no question in my mind, has what it takes to earn my dollars. Why? Because not only do I prefer the packaging, it's got all the newer tech, it's a sharp looking car with some great matte finish paint jobs, but guess what? It has the performance that can take on Huracans, Lamborghini Huracans, and Ferrari 458s and 488s. This is really a supercar with 4 doors. There's no question in my mind, this really is a supercar. Sure, it has 4 doors and it has a trunk. That doesn't mean it has to be dismissed as an inferior product. Remember about McLaren. Everybody out there recognize McLaren as a supercar brand? I think we can all agree. V8, twin turbocharged. And if you talk about the 12C, it had 616 horsepower in its latest iteration. Well, this has 617 horsepower. So specification to specification, it's very comparable to a 12C. And it's not a whole lot different from even the 650 now. So realistically, this really is a wolf in sheep's clothing. The M5 F90 is the car you want if you want ultimate speed, latest technology, and the bragging rights to say ultimately, I have a supercar. There's no question in my mind, the M4, as great as it is, and it is a better, more agile driving experience in terms of handling and the braking part of the drive, it will never be confused with a supercar. It is not a supercar. It's not an exotic car. It does a lot of great things, but it's not the M5. So guys, if this video really helped you make a decision on which is your next M choice for a purchase, make sure you drop a line. I'd like to hear which one you're going to buy. As well, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not a current subscriber. You're really going to love a lot of the content on the channel. Lots of great stuff to see from here on in. Hope to see you guys soon. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.